So we have some objectives for today's meeting. So hopefully by the end of this meeting, we will know a bit more about grounding our nervous systems, continued support in practicing the resilience tools. We want to learn about the power that we all have within ourselves, and to help us with that, we have a Mr. Jonathan Santos Silva. I am super looking forward to meeting him and excited about what I've read regarding his work. We're going to get an update about resilience, for Rural Opportunity Institute's work, what's been happening and what's coming up. We're going to learn more about the Resilience Leaders Initiative, Cohort 2, and how your organization can apply. And we're holding this space to connect. We know that with COVID and all these other issues that have been getting more attention, issues that were already there even before COVID, such as racism, sexism, and all this other stuff, we have so much that's pulling us apart. So I want to hold this space to be together and know that there are other people who care. All right. So for our agenda, going to have our welcome, a grounding activity. I think that I've got that one, our keynote speaker updates, and a bit of closing and feedback. And I am counting on the Rural Opportunities Institute staff to jump in and let me know what I missed now. Don't leave me out there because I need the connection. So here we go. Just to look again at one of the tools that we really rely on as far as conceptualizing what it means to be resilient and to be connected with each other. So right here, you're seeing our resilient zone. We have the light green area in the middle that represents where our nervous systems are, where we're able to be connected and relatively calm. That doesn't mean that we don't have a bit of anger here or frustration here or whatever, but we're moving in this area where we're able to be connected with another human being. But things can happen that trigger us into being amped up. That's represented by the orange section in the top there. And when we're amped up, we are disconnected. So much energy that maybe we are angry, we are snappy, we are complaining, on the lookout for danger. So that is definitely a threat response. On the other end of that, we may go down into that shutdown space and get stuck there. And when we're in that shutdown area, we are feeling helpless, disconnected, maybe just unavailable, not answering the phone, exhausted, don't care. Either way, whether we are in that shutdown circuit or in that amped up circuit, we may be feeling some actual real physical pain. So we don't want to discount that there's a real physical response to this, to being stuck in either amped up or shut down. So at this point, we're going to do a opening activity, and this is one of our resilience tools, and we're going to combine a little bit of grounding with this. So this particular tool is called Redirect. And when we're doing this tool, what we're doing is we're noticing that there is some place in our bodies or maybe in our emotions that really feels uncomfortable, and we are deliberately moving our attention from a place of discomfort or pain to a place that feels neutral or okay. All right, so you're welcome to stand up while we do this. For the sake of being visible on the screen, I'm going to remain seated. But what I'm going to ask you to do is to notice a place on your body. Just do a little scan and notice if there's any place in your body that feels kind of tight or a bit of pain. And as I said that, I noticed that I've got a bit of tightness in my This is my right side, my right shoulder, my right trapezius, or whatever that's called. So I'm noticing that. So I'm going to deliberately move my attention to a place in my body that does not feel any discomfort. So for the sake of this experience, I'm going to move my attention to my left foot, somewhere kind of far away from that area. So if you will, just join me in this. Select a place where you feel some discomfort. Select a place that feels okay. We're going to allow ourselves to get kind of quiet in this. And I invite you to see that place that feels okay. See it in your mind. And allow your attention to really focus more and more on that place that feels okay. I'm going to focus on my left foot and notice that I'm in my shoes, that there's carpet under my foot, and see that space in my mind. And as I do that, I notice that my breathing is settling. My mind is slowing down. And coming back to the screen, I feel a bit more settled in my body. I can actually tell that my voice and my pace has changed a bit. And the sensation in my right shoulder is not as sharp as it was. This is one of several resilience tools that we use to settle our nervous systems, to help us bring our brains back to an online position, back into our resilience zone, so that we can connect with others with another online brain, or even with an offline brain. I might need to do this before I try to connect with somebody else that's a bit offline, okay? But I need to settle myself first, or allow myself to be settled with the help of someone else. Okay, notice the change in your body, and we're going to keep on going. The more we practice these tools, the more natural they become, and literally, the more our bodies anticipate the settling as we're doing these. All right. Okay, so up next, we have a keynote speaker. And again, I'm looking forward to this. I know you are, and just very excited about the beautiful work that's being done with Jonathan and his organization. Okay, so next up is Jonathan.
Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are. Maybe good evening. I think somebody's in Germany. I don't know, it might be evening over there. But to wherever you are, I just want to send warm welcome, and also convey my deepest thanks. My name is Jonathan Santos Silva. I feel so honored and privileged to have been invited here today by my Rural Opportunities Institute family. I have been very blessed over the last, what's it been, Seth and Vici, like a year, to be a part of the last two cohorts of really cool leadership work happening in your part of the world. And although I haven't yet made it out there yet to Eastern North Carolina, I feel like, it's like a second home now. I got so many friends. I see Miss Bud. I saw Miss Yolanda on there earlier, and many others. But yeah, I'm really excited to be able to share a little bit about my work or our work, because probably the main motivating factor for me and even getting engaged in ROI was because I saw um, so many areas of resonance. You know, the work that they do, it's beautiful work. It's important work. It's about centering local leadership and local funds of knowledge and wisdom. And I believe in that deeply. And I hope you see that in the as I go through my presentation. My presentation is twofold, hopefully, to share a little bit about the Liber Institute, our organization, and what we do as a form of just like knowledge sharing. So you can see some of that common ground, and hopefully see where some of our work resonates with what you do. And you say, well, if we're doing it and if the Liber Institute is doing it, maybe we're all on the right track. I mean, we could also be on the wrong track and just happily going together, but I like to think in the positive. And then also to leave you with a little bit of what I hope is inspiration. And maybe more importantly, because I don't think anything I'm going to say today is going to rock your world and be new first time ever, but hopefully more than inspiration, it's confirmation that you're on the right track and that what you do is God's work, it's important work, and that your communities need it. So without further ado, I'm going to try to share my screen here, and we'll get after it. I like to jokingly say, I hate to be the guy between you and lunch, you know, so I'm gonna make sure we get through this so you can eat and do whatever you gotta do. I don't know that that's actually your agenda, but that's my corny dad joke. Oh, whoops, not share. I need to present. See, I'm the corny dad who doesn't even know how to work the Google. How do you work this Google machine? All right, so I have my slide deck over here and y'all are over here. So I apologize if you ever look down at my little box and realize I'm not looking and making eye contact. I love all your beautiful faces, but I want to make sure that I'm accurate. The other thing is, as a point of just like transparency, vulnerability, this presentation, you'll be the first group to ever see the presentation in this format. So in addition to hopefully being a bit of inspiration and confirmation, sure, feel free to give me feedback. That was whack. Don't take slide 3 out, you know, or love it, keep it. All right. But my name again is Jonathan Santos Silva. I'm the founder of the Liber Institute. Get my slide. Okay. Supervisor, building manager, master schedule, instructional leader, mediator, role model. Principals wear so many hats. And this is especially true in smaller rural communities like in yours, where leaders are required to balance multiple roles. And so the question that I like to ask is, who is leading the way while principals are putting out fires? The Liber Institute helps principals lead sustainable and transformational change by building leaders across the entire school community. So we provide support not only to the principal, him or herself, but we work with them to identify other promising leaders in the community that can help to lead this work. The problem and the way that it's felt, we believe firmly that we need a better system. The system isn't broken, so we're not dealing with a glitch. We are dealing with the programming. This is how they were established. A mainstream curricula that kids in our communities that we serve are exposed to do not affirm their indigenous identities, their history, or their culture. The teachers and school leaders that they work with are often ill-prepared to meet the students' unique learning needs. And this is not because they're bad people, but as you know as well as I do, the traditional teacher preparation pathway often doesn't talk about trauma. It doesn't build resilient skills. It doesn't help us learn to lead across lines of difference. And lastly, and maybe most insidiously, education decisions are often made without the input of the indigenous communities that they serve. Now, I'm talking about indigenous communities in North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska. But if there's any point in this where you're listening and you're hearing me and it feels awfully familiar to you, it's because this is happening in parts all over the country. More specifically, the schools in indigenous communities were based on the boarding schools. They started in the 1870s with the kill the Indian, save the man philosophy. And I hate to burst your bubble. This was not a line that was written for a movie. This is a line that came out of a keynote speech by the superintendent of the Carlisle Indian School. This mentality undergirded the decisions that were made and how we educated indigenous young people. It's the reason why they were forcibly removed from their homes, why they were not allowed to speak their language, or for boys to wear their hair long. not to engage in spiritual ceremony or prayer. And it's unsurprising to me that when you build a school system and an education system built on stripping someone of their community, their values, and their history, it's not surprising that 54% of kids in our communities only 54% are graduating high school on time, and less than 20% are enrolling in college. Our approach is simple. We believe that with the right training and support, Indigenous educators can be powerful catalysts for educational transformation. We have a program called the Changleshka. Changleshka is a Lakota word that means the circle or a community. We believe that in building a community of schools working together, we can develop the leadership capacity of teachers and principals so that they learn how to be active, engaged partners with learners and families in redesigning cultural and instructional practices. So as you look at the image from left to right, it starts with leadership coaching for school leaders, professional learning for teachers, and eventually leads to co-creation or human-centered design processes where these educators are facilitating experiences with young people and family members and elders as equal partners in decision-making processes. What people are saying, these are quotes directly from people who are participating in our programs. On the left, a young person who was in our Change Agents project 2 summers ago said, they didn't call us students, they called us change agents. We're not learning from teachers, we're learning and collaborating alongside elders and each other. And on the right, we had a mom and a principal who participated in some of our coaching work. And she said, this was her confident stance after working with us. Success cannot be determined for us. It has to be determined by us. Success is a child blossoming, accepting who they are and knowing what they want to be as a modern day Indian. We've been covered in media, and I don't share that as a bragging thing. It's just that these stories are too good to keep secret, and people are hearing about them and they're telling it. Which, by the way, is also true of the work that y'all are doing. If you could be a fly on the wall in my daily life, you would be surprised by how many times I talk about Miss Bud, Mr. Sutton, Miss Holmes, and all the beautiful work that they're doing at Spate. Good News Travels. This is a little bit more in depth about our work. The Lakota Waunspé Wachinyampi Changleshka loosely translate as the Rely on Lakota Education Circle. It's the idea that our communities like yours have funds of knowledge, deep reservoirs of wisdom and heritage that we can tap into that allow our students to make meaning, to help them to see that this seemingly unrelated math problem or English prompt isn't all that unrelated. It actually taps into something you already know. You're knowledgeable. You didn't come here empty to be filled. You came here with great value. So we provide executive leadership coaching. And what that looks like in practice is we're teaching leaders about how to build buy-in, how to communicate a vision, how to invite your board, your superintendent, and other district leaders into your process, how to bridge, how to build relationships with community organizations, professional learning around culturally responsive and indigenous pedagogies. I would argue that I know that in the Spate community, you have a lot of Black and Latinx learners. There's pedagogy in those communities. There are ways that Black grandmothers and Latinx abuelas teach young people at home that if we know what those pedagogies are, we teach teachers to do it, they will better connect with our students. That's the theory behind the way we approach our educators in Indigenous communities. And finally, there's this create training process where we are leveraging the curiosity, the engagement, the leadership of our educators to pull in elders, family members, and students to help to reimagine school. All this is in service of building or increasing learner engagement, applying the Ocheti Shakoni essential understanding. So Ocheti Shakoni it translates as the 7 council fires. If you ever in high school in American history learned about the Sioux people, S-I-O-U-X, those are really the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota peoples, and their term for themselves is Ocheti Shakoni. These are essential standings that are recognized by the state of South Dakota as valid teaching tools, and yet it's one of those things where they're in the standards, but nobody funds work to build curriculum. So it's like a surface level commitment. So we want to change that. And lastly, we want to expand access that young people have to the Dakota and Lakota languages. They hear their their ancestral languages throughout the school day. Well, that's what we want. This is our mission and vision. It's basically to embolden and equip students, families, and educators to transform schools and communities they serve. And our vision is that one day there are equitable schools existing in all our communities that were designed by the people who live there. Our goal by 2026 is to see that those numbers I talked about earlier to increase. We want to see an increase in the number of kids who are graduating from high school on time. And we also want to see increased college enrollment. This is not that there are not other viable pathways. We think that a lot of our young people will pursue the military, they will pursue direct careers, and that's beautiful, but we want communities that have a diverse set of pathways for our students to choose from, so they each have an authentic pathway. And we're committed to this in all rural communities of color eventually, but right now our primary focus is and emphasis is on the 46,000 Indigenous learners who are served in Bureau of Indian Education funded schools, most of which, but not all, are located on and around our reservations. It's going to require a lot of work, time, and attention, but we believe that in that time, we can touch 325 unique educational leaders across 54 buildings, and that will be impacting directly 6,800 learners and their families. This is our team, and the only reason I share it, you don't know probably any of these folks, but I want you to know that it was very intentional for me as a Black man who is not from an Indigenous community. It was important that our team, both on the left, our full-time staff, and on the right, our board, was reflective of our community. We think it's also important to have roles for people to work across lines of difference, but certainly we want to tap into local brilliance. And this is mainly our differentiator. In Lakota, there's a phrase, mitakuye owasi, which is we are all related. It is the idea that as human beings, but also with our four-legged and our winged relatives, with all the land, that our futures are interwoven and that our success is intimately tied in to the success of others. And so when we talk to principals, teachers, young people, and families, we are working with them to reimagine themselves not in opposition to one another, but to remember that our future is linked. And also the commitment to incorporating cultural resources and values in our work. That's what makes us different from all of the other players in our area. And so that's us. That's a little bit about me. And this is where I hopefully am turning the page into confirmation and inspiration. So I mentioned, I started this work not having grown up in an Indigenous community. I was actually a Teach for America Corps member. I came into South Dakota to teach high school math on the Pine Ridge Reservation. I thought that I knew about education equity. I had seen how a school that I started with, that it was very diverse. There were a lot of other Black and brown kids like me. By the time I graduated, I was the only Black or brown face in all of my classes, in all of my advanced courses. I thought it was broken, but as I mentioned to you, my experience has changed that perspective, and I realized it's not broken, it's by design. And so it is going to require of us to be as intentional or more so, and doggedly determined and dedicated if we want to fix that and change it and replace it with something that is designed to serve. That's where liber comes in. The word liber comes from the Greek and Roman for the free ones. There's a god, a lesser known god in like the mythology, whose name was Liber. He was the free one. My core value, if I had one, it would be liberation. It is this ongoing pursuit of freeing myself from the harmful ideas that I picked up in my education about what Black men were capable of, what I could do. And I believe that it's the journey of all human beings to progressively seek our liberation, to get free of the things that other people say we are and are not capable of, so that we can ascend into our highest self. The Liber Institute, the story I was once told, why we use this elephant, is I was once told that if you wanted to domesticate elephants, and we know that historically different cultures have leveraged elephants for transportation, for protection, for a lot of different purposes. But if you wanted to domesticate an elephant, you would capture the young and separate it from its parent, from its mother. And you chain that baby elephant up, and her natural intuition would be to fight, to flee, to get free. But over time, that chain would teach her she was no longer free. And as an adult, even at 2 tons, and as one of the most powerful beasts on earth, you could tie that domesticated elephant up. And apart from very specific times in the year when elephants call to one another and they gather for social engagements, the rest of the year, they don't fight to get free. And all you need is a little rope. And as soon as she feels the tug, she don't try. And when I heard that story, I thought about communities like ours and how powerful we are as Black, Indigenous, Asian communities, all of the inherent value, and rural communities, all of the inherent power and value we possess. But how often we fail to tap into it, not because we don't have it, because we believe that our chains are still there. We believe that we're actually limited. And so the purpose, the value, and the mission of the Library Institute is to remind us of our power, to remind us that we are the elephant in the room, and that when we work together and we remember that we're related and connected, we can change the world and our communities. And so that is the bit of confirmation I give you. The work that you do is liberatory work. It's powerful work. It's life-changing work. And so the things that you need to do to stay healed and rejuvenated and refreshed so you can do it and show up for your kids, because I know there's a lot of vicarious trauma that you carry as educators and mental health professionals. But in doing that work and making it sustainable, it is the #1 gift you can give to yourself and to these young people and families. So without any further ado, I thank you for inviting me. Thank you for this time. And I'll open up to any questions or considerations or comments that you have. But thank you for having me.
Wow, thank you, Jonathan, so much. Man, yes. Okay, well, I'm just going to say straight up, confirmation, brother, confirmation. Thank you so much. Wow, I am so inspired. Woo. Okay, but I got to stay here for a minute. I'm ready to walk out. Oh, you're in North Dakota?
Our work is based primarily in South Dakota and Nebraska.
South Dakota, Nebraska.
I'm based now. I just recently moved back in the last couple of months to where I'm from on the East Coast.
Okay.
We got 4 kids, 8, 6, 4, and 2. And after several years of being away from all their grandparents, we thought we need to get, that part about relationship is important. And I was like, we got to get home. But this work is near and dear to me still.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Looking forward to meeting you. Thank you so much. Seth, is it good to open up the floor? Can I do that? Or are we taking some questions now? Fantastic. Yeah. Bring them on in.
And as people are thinking of questions, feel free to share in the chat any gratitude.
Jonathan, I don't have a question, but I just want to say thank you for. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing, and I really am excited about what you're doing and how it can impact us here to, pretty much maybe duplicate some of that.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. I appreciate
that. Jonathan, could you talk a little about how important it is to get parents engaged in the education of their children?
Yes, sir, Brother Akbar. It is imperative. We have to remember, and I know that I'm preaching to the choir in many regards, but our parents, and for the young people that live with other family guardians and whatnot, the guardians, the family behind the student, it really represents their first educators. Even if they get to you in kindergarten, that family has 4 or 5 years of deep lived experience with the child. They know the schema that they come with. They know the background experiences. There's so much information and knowledge they can provide to us as far as like how to make connections, right? So much of teaching is building on past experience. So that's imperative. What we have to remember, though, is that there are so many barriers to family engagement, whether that is lack of mobility, transportation. Sometimes, in our communities, our kids are traveling sometimes 40 minutes or more, 50 minutes, 60 minutes on a bus. So that means if you want mom or grandma to show up, she needs to figure out how to do that. And in our community, not all our families have reliable transportation. But even beyond the physical barriers, there are also, historical and psychological barriers. Think about how many times over generations, schools, institutions have messaged to families the lack of value that they present. And so when you show up for the first time and say, Miss So-and-so, we really love you to be here, we have to remember sometimes we are combating a lifetime of messages that are counter to that. So we can't fall into, and I'm not suggesting you're saying this, but we can't fall into deficit-based thinking that our families don't care. We have to remain in an asset base that our parents care deeply, what are some of the barriers that we're not seeing, that are invisible, that we have to help them address before they're going to be coming in here regularly. So it's essential, sir. It is a missing piece. It is critical. If we don't address it, if we don't figure it out, we are always going to be behind the 8 ball with our kids, because there's always going to be an aspect of their life that we don't have access to.
Mr. Sanchez Silva, the access mindset that you're talking about, asset mindset, is just all up and through your presentation and just blew apart everything that I'm accustomed to hearing about those types of things, and thinking that when children or parents or whomever come, they're not coming empty to be filled, but they're bringing value. Just powerful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Ms. Bud.
All right, I have Lee Clark.
Hey guys, everything you said just resonates with me. I've been a teacher for 7 years and now community health worker, and I was just curious to pick your brain. What have you seen has been the most effective in trying to help people understand that it's not the kid, but there is a system that has been put in place, and you can go look at history and see that. But the best way to try to have that discussion with other people without putting them on the defensive and making it feel like, okay, you didn't do this. This is not your fault. This is where we're at. How do we address this from a big picture and look at to really effectively reach these kids, as opposed to just following the system that's in place?
Sure. That's a great question, Mr. Clark. First thing I think about is, although for many of us, it defies our understanding why somebody would come into our communities and teach our kids and teach and engage our families and not have that asset perspective. We have to remember that a lot of it comes from, most of the ways that people act, whether we like it or not, or agree or not, come from a logic model that makes sense for them. So when people are coming across lines of difference, whether that is me as a non-Indigenous person going into an Indigenous community, or maybe in your area, it might be, I don't know, folks moving into a rural community and never been in a rural community or never really worked with Black or Latinx students. To them, the lack of belief makes sense. Maybe there are past experiences or biases that they were taught as to the lack of capacity. So they're not coming in necessarily out of a hateful spirit, but this is what they learned. They just don't believe in the capacity. So I think the first thing we have to do is create opportunities where they come into relationship and connection to their students, to people in the community who reflect their students, that begin to dispel those notions. Like, for example, if someone is in your community that just has never really seen that Black people are capable, and that's a sad reality if that's what their background is, but then they need to be in fellowship with people like not only their students and the parents of their students, but with educators like Ms. Bud, and they can go, that it starts to challenge that notion. Oh, you've been taught that Black people can't X, Y, and Z, but this is a principal. This is our superintendent. This is our teacher. This is our master teacher. They have to be challenged. They have to come into contact. That goes back to the Mitakuye Owasi. It is easy to not believe in people who you don't see equal to you. But when you start to believe that you are related to these young people, it becomes easier. And then you can start to have conversations. You can start to challenge it. Wait a minute. Now that you've noticed that the teacher's perspective has changed, you can see that they are beginning to love this community and love these kids. Then you can ask him or her, hey, you made this move in class. You asked a tough question, but then you bailed the kids out. You didn't maintain a high expectation. If you really believe they're capable, you can wait. Give them wait time. You can let them grapple with, stuff like that. But it starts with, they've got to have experience. They have to believe. The other part of it is that I do believe that there's time for patience and understanding and bringing people into the work. There are also times when you say, at some level, my children, the children we serve, don't have forever to wait on your readiness level. We have to also think about the ways that our organizations foster a sense of white fragility, that I'm not ready for the conversation, and no one's making me get ready. So I'm not saying that day one of pre-service, y'all got to get it together. But I think like putting people in a place to be coached and supported, but eventually saying, you know what, it's been a year and I haven't seen movement. We're gonna have to move on because, you know, these students don't have an alternative. Our students don't get paid. They can't quit this school and go to a better school, you know, and take a new job somewhere else, but adults can. So I'm not saying we deal with a deficit mindset to the teacher. We also have to have asset mindset for them, but we can't out asset mind them. At some level, they've got to match our level and show a commitment and willingness to grow. I don't know if that answers the question, but hopefully at least provide some kind of my thinking.
That is so important, Jonathan. Thank you so much. And part of what Seth and Vici and ROI has brought to our area is an understanding of the nervous system. And Jonathan, really interested in hearing what you've seen there as far as people's capacity for managing their own nervous systems. If you know where you see that, both from the perspective of learning more about your people and about ourselves as human beings, but learning about how our nervous systems work from the bottom up. And from what I've seen, Lee, is where this new information is so threatening. It feels and recognize that it feels threatening in the body, right? In the body. And so to look at that and the continued work is going to be so important. But these folks are having a body experience, and we know how disconnected Americans are from the body. Yeah, we are so disconnected, and when we actually start to feel something good or bad, we start to get scared, so and run away from it. So yeah, so looking forward to any thoughts that you have on that point as well, Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I've experienced in a lot of the schools and indigenous communities that I've worked with, really at the forefront of these conversations about trauma and resilience. Like I first heard about like intergenerational trauma and vicarious trauma back on the reservation. And so when you add that to your question, Lee, which is you may have a teacher who's new to the community, new to the field, and we are now challenging all these deeply held beliefs about what kids are capable of. You're going to be all kinds of responses. And so what I've seen, so everything you said, Mr. Jones, is spot on. What I would add to it is that what I've seen work is like, in addition, like when we're thinking about how do we expose people to things that will challenge those beliefs, one of the ways we've done it is, like, for example, they do a lot of equine therapy using horses as therapeutic mechanism for people to heal and grow and confront difficult situations. And that is so culturally connected because the Lakota and many of the Plains tribes see themselves as horsemen and horsewomen. And so it's not just, you know, here, new teacher, get engaged in this practice. It's also a teaching and cultural exchange. So something that I would wonder about would be, what are some potential opportunities, you know, healing cultural experiences that will allow people to navigate and learn and understand that will be rooted in the history, the African American history of that area and the Latin American history of the people that are moving into that area, right? So like, what are some of the things that people remember from home or from their grandma and grandpa that could become part of the practice so that we are both helping teachers and other professionals deal with trauma and exposing them to what I was talking about, that the deep reservoirs of wealth, of wisdom that is there sitting untapped. Miss Juliet, I think you had, first of all, Mr. Jones, did that answer your question?
Beautiful, beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had a hand raised. Miss Juliet, I'd love to have hear your question or thoughts.
Hi, this is Juliet. Hello. I just wanted to share. First, thank you for the work that you're doing. I had some past experience during my graduate program where my research was on, does parent involvement have an impact on students' performance? And the community that I worked in, I'm from a small town in Connecticut, was one of the smallest towns in Connecticut, which had a very high child removal rate by Department of Children and Family. And so I, was there initially because of my job, And then while I was in graduate school at the time, and then so I decided to do my research in that area. And for such a small area, it's a small town, but yet in the whole entire state of Connecticut, it had the highest child removal rate. So getting into the school system and working, I did most of my studies in elementary and the junior high school, and just trying to minimize the barriers. Why parents, teachers, having that wall up against in each other or what have you, because I have children myself, and knowing that when I'm communicating with the educators and they're communicating with me, it does have an impact on the child's performance. Okay, if I feel something is important, then my children will buy into it. And that's how you train them, that's how you teach. But some of the things that I was hearing was like non-compliant and resistance and just a bunch of negative things. But then when looking further, as you said, we go, parents felt intimidated. They talked about that when I had my roundtable discussions with them. They felt intimidated, they felt judged, and they too did not have a very good experience during their childhood, during their educational years. So therefore, there's that barrier, and not all teachers are out to get, so it was just interesting to hear how the community felt about others coming in and telling them what they needed, as opposed to them having some input. And when they had some input into what they felt they needed, what they felt their community can benefit from, you saw the dynamics change. You saw, the gloves came off, you saw the open discussions, but we have to go into communities and ask them what they feel they need. They want to have input. They want to feel like they are respected, because, perception patterns behavior. That's another thing too, so if one's perception that you're coming here to tell me what to do, people will, people will be resistant. You will see that, so when we have to look at the symptoms as opposed to just putting a label on it. But then why? Let's do some more research. Why aren't they coming? What have you? If we have a single mother who's working 2 jobs or what have you, we can't just say, okay, let's make a parent teacher conference at 9:30 in the morning. Let's try to work around that person's schedule. Let's try to meet people where they are to benefit the community. So there's so many factors. There's layers and layers to it. But like I said, I'm just glad to hear that you're doing, the work that you're doing. And so what came out of that research was, roundtable discussions. So which they met, twice a month, and moving forward an award system for the students. And they also did some community outreach work as well to get the parents resources. Like for instance, I had a child. He had the fear and anxiety over having to have a detention because he wasn't getting his homework signed by his parent. But by the time the child came, the parent was home, the child was asleep, and it was a sitter that was watching it. So I had to ask that, and the teacher wanted to reprimand the child
Right,
due to the adult situation.
right.
And I'm like, let's find, ways around that. So with so many, I can give you stories for days, but these are
Absolutely.
things that needs to be worked on.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms.
Well,
Juliet.
thank you
Johnson?
so much. Yeah, I just want a closing thought. I mean, first of all, on that point about parent conferences, there are so many things we've learned in the last year about our ability to be infinitely more flexible and responsive to families when we want. So we need to stay committed. That's the first part. Last part I'll say is this. I worked with an amazing principal of a small school out in a community called He Dog. The building was condemned. It shouldn't have been occupied. The federal government recognized it as condemned, and we were having classes in the building. This is the type of travesty of justice that was happening. You may know things of this nature happen in your community, and yet this principal made a beautiful community. All these posters and words of affirmation, and one I'll never forget that I want to leave with you is this. When you talked about misbehavior, quote unquote, or standoffish child, whatever, we have to, as adults, assume that all behavior is a manifestation or signal of love or a request for it. So whether they're yelling at you, throwing a chair, they're upset, they're not doing it. If we believe that what this is they either are telling you they love you or that they really need you to love them, how would that change our response? How would that change our willingness to find workable solutions for children and families? So I leave that with you as to say, I know you know it, but for like Mr. Clark, that's the kind of stuff you need to teach these teachers. Just to remind them, this is either for love or because he needs it. It's either love or she needs it. And just get them on that track. And I promise you, the work you do, like I said, it's so incredibly important. So keep at it.
Wow, Jonathan, thank you so much. For the sake of time, we're going to keep going. But wow, man, I don't know about y'all, but I am so glad I'm here today. Good gracious of life. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for that word. We know that from the body to the brain, that our behavior is normal. Our kids' behavior is normal. The question is, what are they saying? Man, okay, I'm blown away. I'm blown away. All right, so we're going to keep on going. Thank you again, Jonathan. Man, so glad to have you in our lives on this planet, to be sharing this space with everybody right now. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to keep on going. Or we're good to go? Because I don't have control of the slides. Please continue to type into the chat box, y'all. Please do, please do, please do. And hopefully we can get around to any additional comments and questions, and ROI can hold on to those. All right, so we have some information about the cohort 2. Is that up next?
Yeah, I can jump in, Victor.
Oh,
Just
please.
some ROI updates. But yeah, thanks again to
All right.
Jonathan for just sharing and for all the work. He's just been supporting a lot of different local organizations. It's been super inspiring. And so yeah, just wanted to share a little bit. For those who don't know, I'm Vici, work for ROI. Have been helping to host this meeting for, almost 4 years now. So just thankful to see everyone continue to stay engaged through the pandemic, through everything else. It's just an amazing community of expertise in the room. So we learn from all of you every time we get together. So excited to just share a little bit here about kind of the history of the organization and this meeting and how we got here. And then you'll get to hear from some different community folks around different work that's going on. So let me just share my screen and do this. So yeah, pretty fun news. Like I said, we have been honestly blessed to be in this community for the last 4+ years, and recently have been able to grow our team. So there's been just like so much good work happening around trauma-informed and resilience practices that just excited to be able to bring on some more folks. So wanted to make sure to introduce you all to our newest full-time team member, Naomi Marsh, who is our Director of Operations. And so I will actually let her introduce herself further, and then hopefully, when you all are interacting with us, you have a chance to learn more about her. So yeah, Naomi, take it away.
Thanks, Vici. Again, my name is Naomi. I have a background in education and a lot of community engagement work, originally from Denver and now reside in Tampa, Florida, but I'm currently in Rocky Mount. So if you are around and want to meet me in person, I am in town. But just really excited to start with ROI and do this work. And just they're amazing people. I've heard so many positive things, and I've got to meet a lot of people on this call virtually thus far. And just really excited to continue to dig deep, continue making an impact, and contribute what I can to the team. So thank you.
Awesome. So yeah, as she said, Naomi's in town for the week, so feel free to reach out, and we'll share a little bit more about some other chances to potentially meet her and the rest of our team later this week. And so yeah, just want to give a little bit for those who are new to this meeting. Thank you so much for being here, and for those who have continued to, just a little bit of a continued overview of what it is we're trying to do at ROI and in this bigger community collaborative. So ultimately, our goal is to support trauma-informed and resilient communities. And the kind of underlying North Star is that we know that people are not to blame for the trauma that they experience, but that often this is due to unjust systems and policies. And so the question is less about how do we get people to, persist through things or change their behavior or any of that stuff, but more so like when we look across the board at systems and policies and practices and habits, like where is it that we might be able to reshape some of those things to better support healing and resilience, rather than isolation, punishment, trauma, racism, some of these other challenges. So it's been awesome to bring together just like a lot of people across a lot of different sectors to try to think through, like in every space, how are we able to do this? And something that I think keeps us grounded is that we know that our community has a super long history of strength and resilience. And you don't have to look too far to be reminded of that. So Princeville, which is in Edgecombe County, is the first community or the first town in the United States incorporated by freed slaves after the Civil War. And the folks that live there continue to fight for and preserve that history. Martin Luther King delivered his I Have a Dream speech in Rocky Mount before he delivered it in Washington. Janice Bryant Howroyd, who is originally from Tarboro, is currently running a multinational corporation, and she is the first Black woman to run a $1 billion private company. So there just are so many examples of places where people here have continued to show resilience. And so it's less a question about like, how do we change what's already happening, but more so how do we build systems and policies that support even more healing and resilience and like tap into and build on what's already there. So we're just super grateful to be, I think, a small piece of like a long history of this work. And so a little bit of just like what we've been doing and how we got here. Like I said, ROI, and honestly, so ROI started in the summer of 2017, and it started with one of these community meetings. And that meeting probably had like 18 to 20 people in it. And so it's really neat to see that whole movement grow, and also to see some of the people on this meeting today that were there at that first conversation. And so essentially what we did was at the start interviewed a series of parents and families, as well as providers, largely in the kind of East Tarboro area. And that was named as an area of focus because of the wake of Hurricane Matthew, and people naming like a lot of acute trauma in that moment in that place. And what we heard from people was, we weren't asking for this, but heard a lot of stories about people struggling with trauma and unaddressed trauma. And so unmet mental health needs, folks naming that in their most vulnerable moments, they feel most isolated, and a racial and punitive bias in the way that systems were responding when people did come asking for help and with needs. And so the question became like, is there a way to recreate or reconstruct these systems, particularly in rural communities, in ways that support healing, and also that sort of understand history and focus on building like strong and deep-rooted relationships. And so the way that we did that was we embarked on this systems mapping process. And so again, these community meetings were largely the place where this happened, but people would come together and do these activities to start to understand like, what are all the pervasive patterns and forces that contribute to the challenges people are naming. And so you can see some photos of different folks getting together, doing this at the Ray Center, doing this at the school district, at the community college, various churches. And over the course of about 6 months, we kind of built this systems map, which shows a lot of the different patterns and stories of different people across the community experiencing either healing or kind of struggling with unaddressed trauma. And the overall takeaways was that our current system as structured moves away from healing because it often segregates and isolates people who experience trauma away from opportunities for healing. So you could think of things like school suspension or incarceration, or these various ways that folks who are kind of experiencing the most challenges end up being essentially isolated away from the most helpful healing opportunities. And that as a result, we continue to uphold historical trauma for generations rather than kind of creating more opportunities for healing. And so that can sound pretty overwhelming. So the question was like, okay, what do we do about it? And so we engaged in this leverage process where people kind of looked across the map and said, where's there the most energy for change? Like, where do we already see bright spots that we can build upon? And 3 areas emerged, and that has become essentially our community-wide strategy or theory of change in terms of like what we actually tried to do. And so those 3 areas were learning, healing, and connecting. And so the first is like finding more and more opportunities to help people learn about what trauma is and how it shows up in their context and how they might be able to respond. Following that, the hope was that we would see kind of a demand for more restorative solutions and a shift away from punishment and towards like more restorative practices. And finally, the goal being that as folks experience more opportunities for healing and connection, that they also stay connected to pathways for school and work, and ultimately wealth building. with the idea being that long-term success would be those in our community who have lived experience with trauma would be best positioned to ultimately provide healing for others. And so this is kind of like, since doing this process over the last like 3.5 years, what all of our efforts have been towards is like executing this strategy in various places. So a couple of examples of what that looked like, we formed a community board. And so here are some of the members, but essentially this group of people meets about every month to make sure that we are taking actions that align with the strategy that everyone built. We, in that sort of like learning knowledge bucket, have been able to get resources to offer a lot of different kinds of training. And so we've offered these like 60 to 90-minute awareness building presentations for any organization. You can request them on our website. We've done several 2- and 4-day Reconnect for Resilience trainings. Victor Jones is one of the trainers for that, have hosted a bunch of listening circles, and just generally been able to reach over 13,000 members of our community with some form of knowledge building. This is pretty neat. So over the course of doing that, over 23 of our own community members have become certified as resilience trainers. So they are the ones leading training in our community, which I think aligns to this idea of sort of those in our community being the ones at the forefront of leading healing work. Several of these people are on the call. So shout out to all of you for doing that important work. And then we had the chance to work with Resources for Resilience to build a set of illustrated flashcards. And these cards each kind of highlight a different resilience building skill and how you can practice it. And so this is something that if you're interested in requesting a set of these cards or ordering more, can definitely email us or reach out on the website, and would love to kind of share that tool with you. And then one other program that's seen some success is Biofeedback Breathing. And so this is like a technology-enabled breathing program. You can do it on an app, and it helps measure the state of your nervous system and then provide over time practice with breathing exercises you can do to improve resilience, and have been able to pilot this in a couple of middle schools, in the county jail, in the Edgecombe Youth Development Center, and have seen, in various settings, some pretty good results in terms of people stating that their anxiety decreased, a better ability to calm down. And so this, if you go to our website, there's like a guide you can download for free that walks through exactly how to run one of these. And if that's something that you think could be neat to pilot in your setting, can also talk about how we can support you to do that. So those are just a couple of examples of ways we've tried to live out the strategy in different spaces in the community. And then gonna kind of pause here and turn it over to Seth to share about our newest program, which kind of looks at doing this on a deeper level.
Thanks so much, Vici. So yeah, excited to just echo the gratitude from Victor and Vici. Thank you, Jonathan, for an amazing keynote. And going to very briefly share about our Resilient Leaders Initiative cohort. So if there's one action for you to take out of today's meeting, please spread the word that there will be a second Resilient Leaders Initiative cohort, and that we're looking for organizations, public institutions in Eastern North Carolina that serve or are based in Edgecombe County. And so I'll give you a brief overview about this program, and our ask to you on the call today is please spread the word. We'll give you some information and resources you can email out and post on social media. And we're trying to identify any and all public organizations in our community who could be a good fit for this second cohort. Jonathan actually is one of the coaches of Spate Middle School, and that was our connection to Jonathan. And so thank you to the Barnhill Family Foundation and the Anonymous Trust for supporting this Resilient Leaders Initiative. It's a 9-month program that works deeply with local orgs to help pilot new trauma-informed practices. And I'll drop in the chat an interest form that is now live that any organization can sign up for. It's specifically for organizations that are based in Edgecombe County or that serve families and kids in Edgecombe County. And the program is modeled after social accelerators, where you'll get funding to implement new ideas. You'll get support and coaching to design and pilot new practices. And you'll get just a whole 360 of support around identifying what the highest leverage actions you can take to become more trauma informed. And a little more specifically, you'll get support around better understanding the people you serve, using the design process to build empathy for those you serve, framing a challenge, like what is the highest leverage challenge your organization's facing around trauma and stress and building resilience. And then you'll get a lot of support around being data-driven and getting support around measuring data and doing small tests or little bets to figure out what works and what doesn't work in your context. To date, there are programs like the Resilient Leaders Initiative. You can see some of these on the map here, but they are based in densely populated urban areas. And so the Resilient Leaders Initiative is one of, if not the first program like this, where it seeks to address historical trauma as the cause of present outcomes. It focuses on public institutions, schools, longstanding nonprofits, government agencies, and it's based in and rooted in our rural community here in Edgecombe County. And during this program, you'll get support to, in the first part, try to figure out what is the right problem to be solving. And then in the second part, figuring out how do we build the right solution to that problem. And so you'll be following this human-centered design process to empathize and define that problem and that challenge. And then you'll be getting support around brainstorming, ideation, doing a bunch of small testing, and then reflecting on what worked and what didn't work. We have a two-pager that is located on the website that we'll email out, and please share this with anyone you think could be a good fit for the program. In the first cohort, the data has been really positive. Majority of people are saying that they are walking away much more knowledgeable about strategies for healing and recovering from trauma, and they're feeling connected to community efforts to advance racial equity within their organizations. And so we'd love to see your organization or organizations you think would be a good fit in cohort 2. So there is, if you go to ruralopportunity.org/leaders, it will have a lot of information about the program. And then on that website, there will be an interest form that is meant to be more of a screener, short, light commitment, just to see if you could be a good fit or if someone you know could be a good fit. And just to give you some examples of what people are working on, the Word Tabernacle Church, their preschool academy, is testing out evidence-based practices around being trauma-informed, embedding the resilience skills that Victor trains on and that we opened the meeting with into their curriculum and parent engagement in the preschool. Spate Middle School, huge shout out there, really focused on their Latinx and LGBTQ students around how can they co-design solutions to better address the trauma that those students might face in their day-to-day experience at school. The Edgecombe County Courthouse and the Greater Is Coming Ministries, led by Clerk of Court Carol White, and she's also the pastor at Greater Is Coming Church, is working around evaluating options to connect community members who are re-entering back into the community after experiencing incarceration into safe and stable housing. And then also at Word Tabernacle, the Reach Center, their nonprofit that provides a lot of community resources. They tested a peer counseling model to reduce the stigma around accessing counseling and mental health support. So you can kind of get a flavor of seeing what the current organizations in the program are working on. And if you are an organization in Edgecombe County, we'd love to have you apply and get the opportunity to work together in next year's cohort, which will run from March to November, to identify the highest leverage solutions that you could implement around becoming more trauma informed. So again, that's ruralopportunity.org/leaders. And then much more interesting than hearing me talk about it, big thank you to Corey Williams of the HOPE program, the alternative learning program at Edgecombe County Schools. Him and his team have just been doing an amazing job in the first cohort. And so I wanted to give Corey a chance to introduce himself and share about his experience in the program and what HOPE has been up to.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Corey Williams, and I'm the coordinator for the HOPE program in Edgecombe County. I'm excited to share with you some of the things that we have embarked on these last couple of months. As we look to answer some of your questions, the best part of being a part of this program, I really love the support that the ROI family gives my team and myself. I love the fact that they're willing to be thought partners and assist me with making the vision of HOPE come true. Through the partnership with ROI, we have developed a program that offers students that attend the HOPE program opportunity to gain employment with a local business in our area. We also have designed a plan where we teach and provide job skills coaching and mentorship for students who are interested in going into the workforce program with the guidance of ROI. Also, ROI has been with Hope the whole way as we help students be successful in job interviews. And also after they have attained the job, we continue to mentor them and coach them as well. The second thing that I think about when it talks about the best part of the program, ROI team has helped me achieve one of my biggest goals here at the Hope program, which is to have a mental health professional on staff. With the mental health professional on staff, it allows my students and staff the opportunity to have support that they need so that they can be their best selves. Also, as I think to answer the second question, why should other organizations in Edgecombe County apply to be a part of this program? There's three things that I think about. The first thing that captured my attention is the vision and the purpose to build a sense of community and to help and heal those who have experienced trauma. But most of all, their commitment to bring an awareness of how trauma impacts all of us. The second reason I would say you need to apply to this program is the relationships. The ROI team is an amazing group of individuals who have a heart after people and will support any way they can. And lastly, the partnerships, the networking opportunities that are available through this program. One thing I can say about this program, if you have a question that needs an answer and they don't have the answer to the question, this amazing group of people and team will seek out individuals who will have the answer and get back to you. So I'm thankful for the opportunity and grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this program. And thank you for allowing me this time to share how ROI has empowered the whole program.
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. And just thank you for your leadership. The HOPE program is the place that students go when they've been suspended or expelled from their home placement school. And so Mr. Williams and his team are just doing amazing work to help really shift some of those responses to be more restorative to the students in the HOPE program. And just big thank you to Aaron Swanson and Dr. Shonda Battle, the Director of Student Support Services, and Superintendent Bridges, and Dr. Robert Batts, who oversees the HOPE program. The entire ECPS team has been really supportive of making these shifts around being more trauma-informed in the HOPE program. So yeah, just thank you so much, Mr. Williams and broader team, and hope to identify and connect with more organizations that could be a good fit for Cohort 2 next year, which will run March 2022 until November 2022. The deadline to submit your interest form is December 15th. So about 6 weeks to spread the word and have people get their interest forms in. And if you're interested in learning more about what Mr. Williams shared and hearing from the other teams in the program, there will be a public celebration and learning event on Wednesday, November 17th from 2:30 to 3:30 Eastern. That'll be the chance for people in the community here, can call in from anywhere, but hear and listen to more specifics about what each team in the program came up with in the 9 months and what they're looking to continue to carry forward after the program's over. And in the chat, thanks Vici for dropping in. You can RSVP for that public presentation at tinyurl.com/ROI celebration. And then just final last plug before we close out the meeting. We have a small bets lab program where we work with highly motivated graduate students to own a specific project that could be high potential around this mission of being more trauma informed. And this past summer, we had an intern, Jesse from Duke, who created a transformative technology report. It builds on the work of the biofeedback program that Vici talked about, but there are many, many technologies that are used in elite spaces like athletic training or Fortune 500 CEOs. And Jesse's report compiled information about which of these technologies would be most accessible to communities like our own. And so if you are a community group that would be interested in piloting any of these technologies, please get in touch with us. And just to give a preview of a couple of the technologies that were previewed in the report, there's a technology called TRIP, which is virtual reality meditations that have been shown to decrease anxiety and stress at a greater rate than just meditating alone. There are these bracelets called Touchpoint wearables that actually bilaterally stimulate you with brief vibrations that bring calm to the autonomic nervous system. There's a technology called Sensate, which you put on your chest and it actually stimulates the vagus nerve and some of the circuits that Victor was talking about at the beginning of the meeting. And there's a technology like Mendy that it's a headband and it actually measures the oxygen flow in the prefrontal cortex of your brain, and it improves your ability to regulate and calm down in stressful situations. So if you work with a staff of people who would be interested in piloting these solutions, or if the people you serve, you'd be interested in piloting these solutions, everything in the report that has been vetted as safe and evidence-based, and it just hasn't been applied in a community setting like our own. So that's the opportunity for innovation. So please get in touch with us if any of that is of interest. And yeah, at this point, really want to turn it over to Tyra to take it home.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So to learn more about ROI or to request a speaker about ACEs or awareness building presentation for ACEs, please visit our website and fill out our speaker request form at worldopportunity.org/speaker. Also to request a 14-hour Reconnect for Resilience training, there's also a form on our website for that, worldopportunity.org/Reconnect for Resilience training. We do have an upcoming RFR training from December 7th through December 8th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. This is 2 full days. To sign up, please fill out that form that is also the request form. If the training does not fill up, it will be postponed until the beginning of 2022. Yeah, check out our website and interact with us on our Facebook, Instagram pages. We do a lot of interactive stories on our Instagram. So come play some games with us. As Seth mentioned, we do have our in-person ROI Community Happy Hour this Friday coming up from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. We will have refreshments, social distancing and safety protocols will be enforced. It's at Tarbert Brewing Company at 526 North Main Street, Tarbert, NC. And also, yeah, please come out and celebrate with us as we bring our first RLI cohort to a close, and to just listen to our teams and congratulate them on a job well done. Yeah, our next meeting, excuse me. Our next meeting is Thursday, March 24th at 12 p.m., same time, same place. You will see me in your inbox closer to that date, so just be on the lookout. And also, when you complete the survey, the feedback survey, you'll be entered into a raffle to win a book by Oprah that was released earlier this year. Also, we have shirts now, so you'll be the first person, one of the first people to get a ROI shirt. So please complete that survey. Complete the survey, and I will open the chat up for gratitude. And I will turn it back over to Victor.
All right, thank you, Tyra. So good to see you again. Oh man, this has been a journey. This is wonderful, wonderful. Okay, first of all, let me give a big shout out. This is not on the agenda here, but I got to give a shout out to Angie Yoder Maina. Am I saying your name right? she shared one of my favorite words, which is Ubuntu. Again, we have this confirmation of ideas here. Ubuntu meaning I am because we are. And we heard so much of that from Jonathan, spreading that love of humanity throughout. And this is for everybody throughout. Let me see. Oh, let me say this. If you are going to do a reconnect and it's going to be an all day, go ahead and get the day off. You need to have your whole body, your whole mind in place, not folks running in and out of your office. As an educator, I feel so bad for folks that are trying to pay attention to a reconnect and people are running in and out of their office and they have to run down the hall and all this other stuff. Go ahead and get the day off and really get the most out of this investment of your time, because it really does involve your whole body brain connection. So please give yourself that space. Let me see. Okay, so we're going to close. Oh, this has been fantastic. I have loved it. Don't have any idea what I'm doing as an MC, but I'm loving it anyway. So we're going to have a final closing activity. This is a rapid reset called Orient. Again, we're practicing all of these because hopefully if you do a reconnect, you will walk away with at least 7 or more rapid resets just to settle your own nervous system and offer to other people. So to practice these, the more you practice them, the more your brain grows, literally, the connections literally grow. So that is no joke. This is the science of it. Okay, so our final activity is going to be Orient. So we're just going to invite you to slow down. Orient is a rapid reset that allows you to notice that you're in a safe space, that you're not under any type of threat. So this is, again, this is a connection from the outside in, this time through your eyes, through your ears, noticing that you are in a safe place and that, you know, there's nothing, no bears coming after you. How about that? So to do this with me, I'm going to invite you to do this. It takes a little while. It's a little bit slow, and it's going to feel like it takes forever, but really it doesn't. It only takes a minute, but we are not a society that slows down for anything. We try to do everything way, way, way too fast. So I'm going to invite you to slow down. I'm going to invite you to look all the way behind you. Make sure there are no foxes or bears or anything trying to sneak up on you. And then we're going to slowly scan the space that you are in. I'm going to invite you to look for the color of your choice. You may choose blue, you may choose pink, you may choose purple, whatever color it is. But as you slowly rotate, to notice everything in your space that is the color that you have chosen to look for. All right. I can't see you right now, so I'm just going to trust that you're doing this with me. So start out by looking all the way behind you. I'm going to look for the color. I'm going to look for the color purple. Okay. All right. All right. Start out all the way behind you. And slowly rotate and look up and down. And scan for the color that you have chosen to look for. I just now see something. It's not a lot of my color in this room, but that's okay. This is an intentionally quiet activity. I'm noticing that my breathing is slowing down. And I am back where I began. So if you want to type into your chat box, what do you notice about your nervous system right now? Is your breathing faster or slower, deeper or more shallow? We are making room for our nervous systems to take in signals of safety and to notice that we're okay, allowing the amygdala to settle, the thinking brain to come online. And as we notice the sensations in our bodies for 20 seconds or more, we're literally making those safety circuits stronger. Your body makes a decision about your breath. Your body makes the decision about your heart rate, and which is given the invitation to notice safety. All right. Well, that's it. That's all I've got. I never know how to close these things, y'all. So Seth, Vici, jump in, whatever you want to say. But I have really, really, really enjoyed being with you today. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity and the space to join with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victor, for hosting and being MC, and thanks everyone for being present. Please fill out that feedback form, and if all hearts and minds are clear, we are done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for the kind words. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Victor.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.